Goodness gracious, we are just whipping through the week, aren't we? Good morning, everybody. Paul Ihander with you on this Wednesday. Max Goren is here as well. Do you despise all the extra traffic? It's for a good cause. Your kids, your neighbors, your nieces and nephews are all getting educations. That's how it works. Although in some buildings, apparently they don't have AC. But they'll get that fixed, right? That's how it works. Things get fixed. Got a pair of 2s and a pair of 6s on the calendar today, 8/26/26, the final Wednesday of the month of August. It is a game week, though, and we're certainly excited about that. A game week, the final preseason game for the Carolina Panthers. A game week, the first game for the North Carolina Tar Heels as they head to Ireland to take on TCU. And they are traveling today, by the way. Today is the getaway day for the Heels. And a game week for the NC State Wolfpack. They're taking on Virginia, which was supposed to be in Brazil, but is not in Brazil, but Brazil like Virginia. When I think of the two, very comparable places, climate-wise, the scenery, the beaches, all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. Should be great. And that game will be on our family station, Mix 101.5, on Saturday. The night before, Friday night, the Carolina Panthers will take on the Houston Texans. Today is joint practice day for the Panthers and the Texans. As you've heard the promo that I've talked about, I love a good fight in camp, so let's get the fights out of the way, but maybe just against each other because the NFLPA now allows teams to be fined for camp fights. But again, these don't count, right? They only count in the pocketbook, and I know Dave Tepper's got plenty of money. We know this. It's not some big secret. The guy's a philanthropist. He donates a lot of time. He donates a lot of money. And lately, he's let his chefs cook in the kitchen. And the Carolina Panthers are getting ready to drop their inside house propaganda, their little blueprint thing. Everybody's doing it, right? They take control of their own film and videography, and they mic up their players, and they go, all right, let's put out some stuff to leak to our fans and see if they find it interesting, a la Hard Knocks Light. And the Panthers have one of those. And you can clearly tell the chefs are trying to cook in the kitchen. And one of the big goals, one of the big themes this year, it seems to be for the Panthers, is how do we win another? How do we win another NFC South banner? And how do we keep moving forward and play deeper into January than just one round? What is that measuring stick? Where do they get to that point? Well, one of those things was an off-season move by Dave Canales in giving up offensive play calling. And Dave Canales yesterday spoke to SiriusXM Radio and Stephen A. Smith. He and Stephen A. chopped it up for about 15 minutes, and Stephen A. was pretty blunt about a lot of things. And he did ask Dave Canales about that play calling, and Dave Canales, to his credit, admitted that sometimes he kind of felt he was in the way of the offense moving forward.
As I'm going through plays, I'm like, okay, I got 2. I got my finger on 2 right here. It's 3rd and 7. And Brad's like, go with this one. And I would say 9 times out of 10, he's got the right play. And then there were a couple of times just throughout the season where, he's like, oh, no, not that one, this one, and I could feel where, he had something in mind with his conversations with Harold Goodwin with the run game, the connection with the wideouts. He spent so much time with Bryce in our QB room, so there's a natural relationship there. So that's one part of it, is just trying to make sure that I'm not in the way of where we could go offensively and our potential and the speed of play and tempo for somebody who's locked in only on the offensive side.
Dave Canales was not a very effective play caller. I think we can all see that now. Just how he tried to operate as a head coach and how he wanted his fingers on the offense. He simply didn't have enough time to be the head coach. He simply put himself out there in saying that I'm not able to adapt as quickly as I want to, knowing that I've been working with this same play caller for years and developing offenses for years. And I need to trust this guy because I've been with him for years, and at some point he was going to have to let those reins go. This year, as I talk about themes, and the one theme it feels like that they're dialed into in Charlotte these days is how do they win another one? Because you can't win another one, as they say, without winning the first one. And now that they've got the first one under their belt, and they know, by Dave Canales admitting to himself that he was in the way of the offensive momentum, that he knows they were ahead of schedule, that somehow this team kept advancing, and won 3 games, and then won another 3 games, and they're 8-9, and maybe they'll win another 3 games and go over the top and put themselves over 500, because that's the goal, right? They need to be over 500. That would help them a ton. That would show progression and progress. But I think Canales would even admit to himself now, and has done so, saying that he was getting in the way of them being effective, and he couldn't do the things that he was capable of doing as a head coach. This season could be an unlocking for Dave Canales as a head coach. He even believes that, because now he says, and he told Stephen A. Smith on SiriusXM Radio yesterday, he can now affect the entire team as a head coach by giving up those play-calling duties to Brad Idzik.
To be able to find the defensive guys coming off the sidelines and spend a little time with them and talk some things through, reminding them of the fundamentals, special teams as well. So it allows me to do some of that. And then, of course, it's those 1 or 2 situations a game, Stephen A., as you know, when a play comes up. It was a close one. It was bang, bang. As a play caller, I got to go to the next play. I got to get the next personnel out, start thinking about the situation and all that while people are kind of evaluating what happened. I'm hoping this will allow me to take advantage of 1 or 2 more situations in a game, talk to the official, maybe try to get a challenge in, the timeout usage, all the game management stuff that I've had a lot of help with and been growing with. I'm excited to be locked into that challenge and see if I can't help our team and just gain a little bit of a margin.
I ask everyone this question after hearing that, and I want you to visualize something with me. Paul Ihander here, Max Goren next up here on 99.9 The Fan. We're talking Panthers this morning right now. Visualize something with me. Do you see Dave Canales 7 years from now as one of those veteran head coach guys in the NFL that's still around and is spoken with reverence? Because I think for one of the first times in his tenure, now that you put the excitement aside, now that you put the eternal optimist golden retriever stuff to the side as well, and I will always call him the NFL's golden retriever because that's what he is. He's got that, I'm good for it, I'm friendly for it, I can get people to come to me, people will come over and scratch my head and scratch my belly. That's Dave Canales. They will. There's nothing to dislike. You like a lot of things about this guy, and now that you probably like him even more, at least for me speaking, that he understands that there's a weakness. There was a weakness in his armor that he needed to fix, and that weakness was he was not an effective offensive mind. Couldn't be, because he was trying to be a head coach at the same time and doing these teachings and doing these fundamental adjustments and trying to figure out that role of head coach. And I think this move by him has shown some absolute growth as a head coach for Canales to come out and make this change. It could have been asked of him, but by the way I hear him speak, and admittedly saying, like, listen, I'm interrupting these things, and I'm looking back on the instances where I sat next to my offensive coordinator where he was literally pointing out, no, this is the better call. Go with that one instead. And he's right. And Canales says 90% of the time. I will take right 90% of the time as a living, breathing adult. You would certainly take it as a 13-year-old in middle school taking your end-of-year tests. You'll take a 90. Most kids would. Unless you're salutatorian or valedictorian. It's not the point, though, what I'm trying to make here. The success rate was so high, Canales had to make the move. I don't think it was forced upon him. I don't think there was hey, you know what, Dave? We should think about this. This probably was him waking up in a sweat going, man, we could be so much better if I didn't have to mess with all this stuff and think about a challenge flag and think about trying to look over the top of Robert Hunt and go, dude, where's David Moore? Get him out here. I need him on this 3rd down and 25. I don't have to do that. To shout out the package. I got a guy that does that for me. I got a guy, right? Realize you're not the smartest guy in the room. One of the principles of business when it comes to being a leader and a boss. Realize you're not the smartest in the room, and then surround yourself by even smarter people. And at some point, you'll be the dumbest guy in the room, but you'll also be the smartest at the same time. That's the double-edged sword. So this conversation, Again, the Panthers playing their final preseason game in Houston. Joint practices today. That's against Houston. Joint practices today in Charlotte. This is the home game at Bank of America Stadium on Friday night. Starters may or may not play. Still trying to figure that one out. A lot of that will be determined after today's sessions in Charlotte. Here's where things get a little bit interesting. And I don't want to read too much into this, and hate's a strong word. I said this last night talking to a neighbor. I was talking about the sticky weather and whatnot. I said, I hate that. And she had her daughters with her, and I said, I don't like using the word hate. I said, I dislike. I dislike the phrase, drink the Kool-Aid. Drink the Kool-Aid, by the way, is one of the most negative catchphrases that comes along with saying that you are just following somebody and you should just follow them because it's what's good for you. It wasn't good when they drank the Kool-Aid. I promise you, it was not. A little bit of history there for you. You can look it up. Go to Mother Google. She will tell you all you need to know about that. I'm not doing that here with this and following some of the storylines by giving this last bit from Dave Canales. Stephen A. Smith was really pointed in asking a lot of questions about Bryce Young. And this was the most direct. And I want you to listen to Canales' response. I'm not going to be cheeky. I'm not going to step on it or laugh or whatever it is. Just listen to what Stephen A. and Canales had to say about Bryce Young.
Is he your franchise quarterback?
He is right now. He's our guy. He's our guy, and I love the trajectory that he's on. And not just the stuff that he's growing in from just an operational standpoint, moving the offense, finding chemistry and all that, but it's also just the critical moments. It's those games. It's the close games. It's the one-score game at the end, whether we're up or down. I love having Bryce out there. I love that he stays cool, calm, and collected and aggressive, and he attacks at the right time. So all those things are pointing in the right direction. I'll let the rest of the stuff just, sort itself out with all the conversations with, his whole group and party and our front office here with Dan and Brent working that part out. But for me, especially now not calling plays, I get to just enjoy this road, help him improve on a daily basis and really take that input and get him to take the next step.
All right. So how deep do you want to read into this? Do you just go right off the top where he goes, is he the franchise guy? And Canales goes, he is right now. You can, if you want to push down that road. He is right now. I will tell you, of the entire conversation, it was the least confident I've heard Canales talk on a topic or a question that came from Stephen A. He's a lot of ums and ands, and then when it gets towards the end, again, reading into it deeper, it feels like they're going to get something done with him. I'll let the rest of it handle itself out with Dan and Brandt and Bryce's camp. It feels like this franchise wants to commit to him. It kind of feels like Dave Canales wants to commit to him too.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an acknowledgement, right, that he hasn't been this elite top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
No argument there.
He's doing the right things to kind of continue the growth and the progression into maybe one day he can reach that level. But, Dave Canales knows, Dave Canales benched him in 2024. So, he knows that he's had some shortcomings as the starting quarterback for the Panthers, and he's grown a lot since then and is continuing to put himself in better positions and put up better numbers and start to get to that point where you can consider having him be the quarterback long term. Obviously, they're not fully ready to back that yet with the contract extension, but they pick up the 5th-year option, and they seem to be pretty hyped up about what he's doing so far in the preseason, at least in the practices. I know in the preseason games themselves, it's not like he's been lighting it up, but he's also only been out there for was it 4 or 5 drives total at this point, maybe 6. So look, it's Dave Canales, he's going to support his guy, but at the same time, he knows what's going on. He knows what level Bryce Young is at, and he's not going to, I think, overly hype him to a level where then he's going to feel he has maybe some expectations that he has to reach that are unreasonable.
He can't cut down confidence. There's no doubt about it. That's, as the head coach, as a guy who admitted that he had shortcomings when it came to offensive play calling and getting in the way, He can't cut down his quarterback. There are no other options at the table. The bigger question for the Panthers is, and this will be the lingering question, especially if Dave already knows what's going on, and he didn't tip his hand too much, but understanding that this team wants to commit to Bryce Young, how much are you willing to pay the 18th best quarterback in the NFL or 16th best quarterback in the NFL? If you're playing in the postseason, you're doing something right. Most teams don't limp into the playoffs with bad quarterback play. There has to be consistency there. And maybe that's the key. I want to know what the benchmark is, where that just line is, where they know that there's something special. Canales has seen it. The front office has seen it. Dan Morgan has played with it. I want to know what they're thinking in terms of the benchmark that it takes or the metric that sits out there that says we are fully in, and he drops the words right now from his vocabulary when he is asked that question again. Is Bryce Young your franchise quarterback? And you only want to hear he is, not he is right now. That's me reading just a little bit into the tea leaves there. Just a shade. He's our franchise guy right now. But overall, some maturation, some understanding of Dave Canales for them to take that next step. And I think you will see this Panthers team. And again, I asked you to do a vision quest with me a few minutes ago about, do you see Dave Canales 7 years from now, like a decade into a head coaching career, as a guy that is considered kind of a sage, a guy that comes with a coaching philosophy that is much different from some of his peers and alike in some cases, but you're not talking about Andy Reid, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick, those kinds of coaches, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike Holmgren. You're not going that far, but I'm talking about a guy who maybe has changed the way the NFL has to think. And I can see that. You see some of that there. You don't think about the youth with Canales anymore. You don't think about some of the inexperience that comes with being a first-time head coach. You just see a head coach now. And I think that's helpful for a lot of fans too, because now you can either be openly supportive of Dave Canales or you can truly be openly critical of Dave Canales because of the tenure that he has and the choices that he's made. Just one man's opinion.
I'm Max Goren with 3 things you need to know right now from 99.9 The Fan. The Carolina Panthers are holding a final joint practice of the preseason today against the Houston Texans in Charlotte. Carolina will face Houston in their final game of the preseason on Friday. Coverage of that game and every Panthers game this season can be found on our family station, Mix 101.5. The SEC joined the Big Ten yesterday in opposition to athletes leaving the pros to return to college teams. The conference voted unanimously to prohibit any former NFL, NBA, G League, or WNBA players from joining an SEC roster. The ACC's members have meetings scheduled with Commissioner Jim Phillips later today. After dropping last night's series opener, the Durham Bulls will run it back against the Norfolk Tides tonight at the DBAP. Bulls coverage can be found on 620 AM Buzz Sports Radio, 99.9 FM HD2, and WRAL News Plus, with first pitch scheduled for 6:45 p.m. For all the latest news on your favorite teams, download the 99.9 The Fan app or visit 999thefan.com.
Yesterday, as you heard Max mention in the update, the SEC came forward with a ban on any player, male or female, who previously declared for the NFL, NBA, WNBA draft, or signed contracts with those leagues or the NBA's G League as well, or have been listed on any of those rosters. The SEC, Greg Sankey, will issue penalties against member institutions who enroll these players. This is where it gets interesting. There's some infighting now, even more so today because of this SEC ban. When it comes to LSU, and Lane Kiffin is like, hey, listen, we got a double standard happening now. When players are able to come back in other instances and get waivers, he mentioned Trinidad Chambliss, formerly of his old school at Ole Miss, who's going to play at Ole Miss and got a waiver. And there are a lot of other, by the way, there's a lot of other players who got waivers to play back in March and April who, I don't think they skirted the ban. They just used the rules that were in place at the time, and that's how quickly this is all moving. Lane Kiffin's not happy about that because he was about to get like 3 guys, including a couple of NFL players, Daquan Wright and Xavier Harris. They were going to come play at LSU. And now the SEC's like, not happening, and we will fine your school. LSU's not flowing with cash as much as they used to, considering how many buyouts they've had to make and what they've had to pay. And the Big Ten did the same thing, but stopped at the NFL. And the ACC's going to probably adopt the SEC plan, which, again, you're trying to nip things in the bud, and you're putting things. And this is all defensive move, by the way. All these conferences and the group of 6, they're going to have to do the same thing too. If they're all going to fall in line, and it'll be the one blanket policy. Listen, if you played professionally in one of the North American leagues, you cannot play. And it's interesting because it says NFL or other professional leagues. So not CFL, not even UFL. Like, you show up, you cannot come back. You can come back to school, take some classes, get your master's, or get your bachelor's if you exited early, but you can't not come back and play. And someone went worst case scenario in this thing. Someone sitting in a room said, all right, how do we defend ourselves against all this stuff? We know we're still going to have to deal with the lawsuits and the stuff that happened in the state courts, but how do we get ahead of this future? Because we do not want a 28-year-old man playing football. We do not need a 26-year-old woman, 6'3" in the post, who fought off a knee injury or whatever it is, but managed to show up in 15 WNBA games and tore it up. Like, we don't need that. It's going to set some of these schools back. It's going to create more headaches than it needs to be. This is absolutely defensive. It's the right thing. It's the right thing. Pros, I think where you get into we start getting into the slippery slope of putting in rules like this and putting in, more guardrails, is that it has to stop somewhere. And we're still inviting professional players who have played internationally into colleges and universities, more specifically at the men's and women's basketball level than at the college football level, because there just aren't that many minor leagues of football. This will continue to happen as transfer portal continues to happen, as new coaches come on. Everybody makes the trip to Europe, right? We look for the 19-year-old, the 20-year-old, the 25-year-old in some cases, to go, hey, you want a college degree? Sort of, kind of. Come over for a year and get your degree. Yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm doing that with a wink and a smile and air quotes and everything. It will continue to be shady. College sports will continue to have the loopholes because they won't be able to close them all. This is just the latest thing of trying to get out ahead. They're still going to have to deal with these court rulings, though. That's not going to change. Nobody wants to be dealing with these court situations, and it will not matter. It will not matter if your enrollment date is tomorrow or your enrollment date was 2 weeks ago. If a judge says they're able to come back, expect more lawsuits if they can't come back. And the lawsuits, this is where they've got to toe the line. The lawsuits will come if they don't play because they're being offered money. So if they don't play, the lawsuit is filed differently and it's dealt for damages. The amount of money that they could have made by returning to school. Yay. Let's talk about more legal issues in sports, shall we?